Have you ever wondered why so many artists paint on a colored canvas? After more than a decade of painting professionally, I will never go back to plain white. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why. Today, I'll be demonstrating the differences between canvas colors, explaining why colored grounds work so effectively, as well as showing you how to properly prepare your canvas. And if you're an artist who already tones their canvas, I would love to hear how you prepare your canvases in the comments below. First, let's start by defining what a colored ground is. When you see a canvas or a surface that already has a base color on it before the paint is even added, that's called a colored ground. Traditionally, artists would use earth pigments as their colored ground because they were affordable, dried quickly, and resulted in a beautiful, warm mid-tone color, all things that we like. I personally love using earth tones, and my favorites are yellow ochre, burnt umber, and burnt sienna. However, you may have seen contemporary artists painting on other colors, including blue, pink, green, and even vibrant red. One of my favorite contemporary Canadian artists, Tim Packer, paints on a bright red surface to get his beautiful backlit landscapes glowing. Which brings us to how to choose your color and why it makes such a difference. Let's start by preparing some canvas boards for the demo. For this demonstration, I am using 5 by 7 inch canvas boards and 3 different paint colors. To start, let's use my favorite, yellow ochre. Because this is a color demonstration, I'm going to be adding it directly onto the surface instead of mixing it in with gesso like I usually do. Later in the video, I'll show you how to fully prepare your canvas, including adding gesso, but for now, let's just focus on the different colors. For the next canvas board, I'll be using an N5 acrylic paint by Golden, which is a perfectly neutral gray. N5 refers to its value, and this is considered a precisely mid-tone gray. It's neither too warm or too cool and sits exactly halfway on the value spectrum. I know many artists who love painting on gray as a colored ground because it really allows them to see where their colors are in terms of temperature, hue, value, and chroma. For the last board, I'll be using quinacridone red, which is a beautiful ruby color. Now, I decided to include this color in the demonstration even though I rarely use it because I wanted to show you the full range of different backgrounds, and who knows, you may find that quinacridone red is exactly what you were looking for. Now let's get into the demonstration itself. For the purposes of science, I have included a plain white canvas as a control, and I will be doing the exact same painting on all of the canvases. I've put tape across the middle to keep the composition as similar as possible. I'm using acrylic paint for this demo since it dries really fast, and I'm also going to taper the top and bottom so that you can still see the background while I'm working. Already, you can probably see a distinct difference between how the same colors appear on different backgrounds. When this happens, it's known as color relativity, where the same colors are perceived differently due to what's surrounding it. Here, the color relativity makes the yellow of the sunset seem darker on pure white, but brighter on the other colored grounds. Similarly, the orange color sort of fades into the yellow ochre background on the left, but really stands out on the others. While I'm continuing to paint this demonstration, let's talk about the 3 major benefits of using a colored ground on your canvas. The first is that a colored surface adds harmony throughout the entire painting, which looks more professional. You can deliberately leave sections of your colored ground shining through, or even if you accidentally miss a spot, instead of it looking like an error, it looks deliberate. The second reason for using a colored ground is that when you choose a mid-tone color, you are much better able to read your values. Value is how light or dark a color is, and it's the key to realism because the lighting just needs to make sense. Rather than working from a pure white, when you start from a mid-tone, you are much better able to control your highlights and your shadows since you're already starting right in the middle. The third reason that I like using a colored ground is that I like when my paintings have a sense of warmth and balance. Even when I'm painting cooler subjects such as icy blue mountains or frosty trees, having them rest on a warm, earthy background sort of balances out all of those cool tones and helps the whole work feel grounded. Now let's go back to the paintings here and talk about another factor that we need to consider, which is color transparency. Pigments like titanium white and cadmium yellow have a higher level of opacity than ultramarine blue or quinacridone red, which are naturally more transparent. That means that while my sky is fairly opaque, the water really shows the layer underneath. What this means is that the water on the colored grounds automatically appear much darker and richer than the painting that's on the white canvas. As these paintings are getting finished up, you can really see the difference that the colored grounds make. Let's take a moment to see how they all look individually. So for this particular painting, the real winners for me are the yellow ochre and the quinacridone red, and if I had to choose one, it would probably be the yellow ochre. I feel like this adds such a beautiful warmth, especially to the water, and I find that the yellow ochre is so versatile because I can pretty much use it for any subject. And even though this gray isn't really doing it for me, you can see how this would be a valuable neutral background for a subject such as a portrait. And if we really want to compare apples to apples, let's get nice and close for how the water looks for the yellow ochre versus the white. The white looks more streaky, but a little bit more colorful, whereas the yellow ochre seems more intentional, rich, and warm. Same with the sky. When the canvas tooth shines through on the yellow ochre background, it feels intentional. And on the white, it feels like a mistake. Now that you've seen how the different colors affect the painting itself, I'd like to show you how I like to prepare my canvases. But before we get into canvas prep, if you're finding this useful, I've written 2 free ebooks for both acrylic and oil painters. You can grab them through the description below, and both include a step-by-step breakdown of this entire process. Regardless of whether I'm painting with acrylic or oil, I always follow the same process for preparing my canvases with a colored ground, and I'll often batch prepare them to save time. My favorite method is to mix gesso with a liquid acrylic paint, then apply it with a thin layer using a foam brush, which doesn't leave any brush strokes. You're going to let that layer dry, then if you want, you can sand it smooth with a fine grit sandpaper, which helps a lot if you like to make smooth blends on your canvas. I do this process at least 2 or 3 times, and I also take the opportunity to paint the edges black so that they're ready to go. Now, when you mix your colored ground directly into the gesso, it means that there are no distracting brush strokes showing through, as opposed to applying that paint straight onto the surface. However, many artists add their colored ground the same way I did for the demonstration, as a very thin layer of paint directly on the canvas, and both methods are valid. Let's see what happens if you use that method and choose to skip the gesso. If I combine quinacridone red with white gesso, it would mix to create a bright pink, which is fine if that's what you want. But if you want that red color to remain untinted and pure, you'll need to omit the gesso and add it straight to the canvas, or you'll need to make sure that you use a clear gesso, which also works. Now you're all set to go, add your paint, and get to work on your masterpiece. In my dedicated video on canvas prep, I get a lot of questions from oil painters asking if they should still use acrylic paint for this process, even if they're planning to paint in oil. The answer is yes. This is the process I use even if I'm planning to paint in oil on top. It is so important to only use acrylic paint if you're planning to mix it with gesso. Do not mix oil paint and gesso. When you combine oil paint and gesso, you will run into adhesion issues, so make sure it's always acrylic, even if you're going to be painting in oil on top. If you found this video useful, you might enjoy my complete canvas preparation video here and my favorite acrylic and oil painting tutorials here. Don't forget to grab your free ebooks. Thank you so much for watching, and happy painting!